Alright, so this is a Dark Millennium Falcon, and I am going to be doing a review on it. So, this set released in August of 2024 for a retail price of $180, and this has set number 75389, 1,579 pieces, 6 minifigures, and an age rating of 10 plus. So, these are the figures. This set definitely has one of the most interesting minifigure selections, and that's because, as you probably know, this set is based off of the Rebuild the Galaxy show, which is kind of like a What If Star Wars. So, all the figures are like weird versions of existing characters. Except Darth Dev right there, which is a new character for the show. So, we might as well talk about him first. The figure has very good printing on his torso and legs, for some nice Sith armor, which looks pretty good. It would definitely work very well on some sort of custom Sith Lord. And there even is a little bit of printing on his left arm, but none on his right. His face print is okay, with a little bit of a monotone expression. His second face is a little bit more of a happy expression, but I feel like it would have made a little bit more sense if it was a more angry one. And one complaint I have about the figure is just that I feel like he would have highly benefited from some sort of helmet. I just feel like that would have looked a lot better. There's also evil versions of existing characters. The first one is just an evil C-3PO. It is essentially just the normal C-3PO figure, just with one black arm, with some very nice printing, and red eyes. Otherwise, it is just a normal C-3PO figure, but at least he has some arm printing on his other side. My least favorite figure in the set is definitely the Sith Rey, and that's mainly because of her eyes. I'm still just not a huge fan of these Sith-style eyes. At least for me, they just don't really look that good. And the thing that especially doesn't make sense for me is that in The Rise of Skywalker, when Rey had a little Force vision of her evil self, the Sith Rey had normal eyes, so I don't understand why they gave the figure Sith eyes. I know that is a little bit of a small nitpick, but I don't know, just not a huge fan of it. At least the printing on her torso is pretty good, and her second face is just a more monotone expression. Definitely one of the most anticipated figures of the set is Darth Jar Jar. And I mean, pretty self-explanatory, it's Darth Jar Jar. I mean, it is a pretty good figure. The printing on his torso is very nice with this interesting Sith-style jacket. And he of course uses the Jar Jar head mold, with some very good printing on it. It is pretty detailed on the back, and he does have a little bit of printing on his eyes for some proper Sith eyes that don't look bad. However, I do wish he had at least a little bit of link printing. There's also a pretty good Beach Luke, which looks very nice. A lot of people have pointed out he kind of looks like the Big Lebowski, and I think that's pretty funny. The printing on his torso and legs are very nice. There's even a little bit of feet printing for some sandals. As you can see, he has his chest exposed, even with a little necklace. The printing on his face is also pretty good, with some nice sunglasses, and even his second face without them. However, I feel like his blue Mokarin should have had a little bit of a print on it. Definitely the best figure in the set, and a figure that a lot of people have been waiting for, is the Jedi Vader. I mean, it is a very good figure. It is essentially just a colored swap version of the normal Vader, but I mean, that makes sense. The printing on his torso and legs are both very nice, and he even has some arm printing. The figure of course uses the normal Darth Vader helmet, but in white, which is in a new color for this piece. And I feel like with this figure, one thing that would have made it look a lot better is just a little bit of a print on the eyes, either in silver or blue. And underneath his helmet, he has a pretty good face print, which is meant to resemble Sebastian Shaw in the original Anakin Force Ghost, which is very cool. So, this is the build. And this set is essentially the exact same as the previous Millennium Falcon, just color swapped. But I mean, I'm not complaining because the previous Falcon was a very good build. All of the panels do look pretty nice. There isn't really that many gaps throughout the builds, except that one right there in the front, which is not ideal. On the back, there is a decent amount of detailing, with a couple little random bits on the panels, like those little pipe things, and those vents, which is actually different from the previous build, because the previous one used these like round Technic pieces, and there was a hole right in the middle, and instead they used normal round tiles, which definitely looks a lot better. There's of course the classic engine, but in red, And there is some nice detailing on the sides. And I mean, it looks pretty good. On the top, there are just a couple more of those little grill pieces, and of course the turret, which you can't spin around, and with a little window right there, but you cannot see through it. Right here, instead of a radar dish, it is actually a miniature Death Star laser, which is very cool, and I do actually have a way you could maybe improve this. First, you want to put 4 green lightsaber blades on those pieces, put a transparent round stud right there with a hole in the middle, and then put a green spring-loaded shooter right there. Close those up, and now it's firing. I don't know, I feel like this is a decent modification. There's this rectangular panel in the front, which you can fold out to access the interior, but we'll get onto that later. And of course, there are these little front things, which look decent. There is some detailing on the sides, and not too much going on top. Just some holes, which I assume are supposed to be vents, and a little red ingot. And I've seen that green spring-loaded shooter right there. And to fire, you just push down right in that front hole. On the inside, there are those rail type pieces. So I guess if you wanted, you could try to build some sort of escape pod. Kind of like on the Solo Millennium Falcon. Of course, there's the cockpit in a trans red, which looks pretty good. And even around it, there is some nice dark red detailing with some stickers right there. And to access the cockpit, it's pretty simple. You just take it off. Inside, there's enough space for 2 figures. And some controls in the front, with of course the classic LEGO Star Wars control panel right there, and a lever. However, on the previous Millennium Falcon, there was a sticker right there with a unique control panel. So I'm kind of bummed that they decided to remove that. Here it is with 2 figures inside. As you can see, it is a little bit of a tight fit, so I would only really recommend for you to put 1 figure in the cockpit if you are displaying the set. Here it is with the windshield on. If you're curious, this is the bottom of the ship. There's not really too much going on. There are just 4 points of landing gear, like that, which look decent, but if you are displaying the set for a long period of time, they can get pretty dirty. There is a second turret on the bottom, which you can spin around a little bit, and the ramp right there, which we will take a closer look at later. Back on the top, you can actually open this thing up, take this out to put 2 figures inside to man the turrets. And you put them on, and just like that, and you can slide them in like that. Anyway, that's pretty much it with the exterior, so let's get on to the interior. And to access it, you just open up all these panels. Like this. There really isn't too much going on in the front area. There are just 2 beds, which you can put figures on. A very cool throne for Darth Jar Jar, with a very detailed control panel in front of them. And of course, put Darth Jar Jar on his throne, and you can actually remove it to reveal a kyber crystal behind him. The back is definitely a lot more interesting than the front. Right over here, there are 2 dark red chairs, which look pretty good, a table with a controller, and instead of a holochess table, it is actually a TV with a holochess video game, which is pretty cool. Right there's a little stickered piece with a little bit of Arabic writing, which translates to this. And next to the TV, there's a console, which is obviously supposed to resemble a PlayStation 5. There's a very cool Sith hyperdrive, which looks very cool, and a little prison cell in front of it. You can of course put a figure inside, which is most likely going to be the Jedi Vader. Right over here, for Darth Jar Jar, there's a little crate with a couple of those energy type things around it that the Gungans use. Right there is the ramp, which you can just push down. However, there isn't exactly enough space for a figure to just walk in there. On the opposite side of the ramp, there is a little surfboard on the wall for Beach Luke. But would I recommend that you pick up the set? Honestly, yeah, I probably would. The build looks great. It has an excellent minifigure selection. It has a pretty good interior with some very nice stickered pieces. And I mean, it is just a very cool novelty to have a Dark Millennium Falcon, because LEGO is most likely never going to make this thing again. However, one complaint I have about the set is it has way too many sticker pieces. I just feel like a lot of them easily could have been prints. Otherwise, I would probably give this set about a 9 out of 10. I do actually have the previous Millennium Falcon, so if you guys want me to, I could do a comparison between the 2 sets.